Good morning. Uh, Thanks for being here. It's a great pleasure. I checked the time and I have some 6 minutes according to schedule.
It's not your fault.
I know I will try to give you all the information in a short time so that you can be on time and eat your lunch. I'm from Czech Republic, from Masaryk University, and I have prepared, let's say, a brief report how it looks in the Czech Republic with the protection of environment at the constitutional level. I have to start with the constitution because our constitution is a little bit different compared to other constitutions, because we are using constitution in two senses, sensu lato and sensu stricto. Constitution sensu stricto is a real constitution according to Montesquieu with the division of powers, but it tells nothing about basic human rights or freedoms. For these purposes, we have the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, and together with the Constitution, it creates constitutional order or Constitution sensu lato. In the Constitution itself, there is just one sentence dealing with the environment, telling us that the state shall concern itself with the prudent use of its natural resources and the protection of its natural wealth. In the Charter, of course, we have a lot of rights and freedoms, including rights and freedoms connected with the environment. However, generally, it's valid for both Constitution and the Charter. The regulation at the constitutional level is pretty brief, and we have to take into account regular acts explaining how these basic rights and freedoms should be interpreted and how to deal with them in practice. And I have to also mention the crucial role of Constitutional Court. I believe historically and still we have very well-educated and really experts sitting there as judges. At the moment, 5 of them from 15 are from our law school. You can see the Constitutional Court here. It's some 15 minutes walk from the law school. It's seated in the center of the city, my city of Brno, because Brno historically is the seat of justice in Czechoslovakia, because Prague and Bratislava were fighting, and because of this, everything is in Brno. From the decisions of the Constitutional Court, I have to highlight several points. Court stated that the environment is a public good, it's a public value. Also, the environmental issues have political and scientific aspects. The right to favorable environment would not prohibit all activities having a negative impact on the environment. It is necessary always to consider both environmental protection and other, mainly business values. Respecting the level of human knowledge, situation in society, international obligations, and the results of national economy. In fact, the same was said by Rector previously. Czech Constitutional Court is the court of law administering justice on the basis of legislation and very often also the previous court decisions. I'm not really a fan of case law, to be honest, because I'm afraid that I said that there are experts at the Constitutional Court. However, I don't really believe that they are experts in environment law. And they could make a mistake sometimes. It's possible. I'm tax lawyer, and I know that it's very often happening in tax law. So case law is not a rule. And if there is a case that was well, let's say not perfectly discussed at the Constitutional Court and the result is not really perfect, it's the role of us, of academia, to discuss these decisions, to analyze them, to be critical, and to believe that judges will find some time to read that, and maybe in the next case they will be able to change their own. But still, the decisions of the Constitutional Court in the Czech Republic are very much respected. I also have to mention the role of Ombudsman, officially called Public Defender of Rights. His position is not, unfortunately, mentioned in Czech Constitution, but his powers are really useful. He may initiate proceedings on the review of a decision, act, or procedure of the authority, performs acts to eliminate inactivity, initiate disciplinary proceedings, criminal proceedings. He is authorized to recommend that the legal regulation be issued, amended, or cancelled, for example. And also, he has the right to make a complaint to protect public interest. Concerning the environmental rights in the Czech Republic, I have to mention two guys. One is the first Czechoslovak and Czech president, Václav Havel, who was the fan of ecology, and in fact he was able to force ecology and ecological aspect, environmental aspect into the constitution. So he is considered to be the spiritual author of Article 7 of the constitution, declaring that the state shall concern itself with the prudent use of its natural resources and the protection of its natural wealth. The second guy is Karel Vašák. Karel Vašák was a Czech-French lawyer, university professor, first director of International Institute for Human Rights in Strasbourg, and it was the guy who ranked human rights into categories, and he ranked the right to favorable environment among the third generation of human rights. So we are very proud of this person, and not many people in the world know that he was at least partially Czech. The Charter includes all rights necessary to protect the environment effectively, including the right to a favorable environment, right to health, right to life, and so on. But still, I would say that the regulation, the legal act, is not perfect, and there are still some issues to be changed, amended, so that we can protect the environment in more effective ways. For example, dealing with unborn generations. We are, I would say, perfectly protecting generation, our children or grandchildren, but dealing with unborn generation, reading the Constitution, of course, you cannot see anything about unborn generation. But analyzing this constitutional regulation, plus analyzing legal regulation, we can see that the protection of unborn generation is here. However, I would still prefer to amend the Constitution and to include specifically unborn generation and its protection. The other issue that was discussed at least twice in the Parliament is the right to water, especially drinking water. We can see the amount of decimal precipitation is decreasing, and not only drinking water is decreasing. Water is definitely one of the most, maybe even the most important natural resource. But seeing the discussion in the Parliament, it was very political discussion, unfortunately. Because this is very clear that this right is important. However, we must also take into account existing conditions in the country. And to change the constitution without changing other legal norms makes no sense. Also there are again economic reasons. For example, all water conduits, sewerages in the country are run by private entities. Sometimes these are municipal companies, but very often these companies are seated abroad, and just to change the constitution doesn't mean that we will be able to protect drinking water, to have fair prices, or prices that are normal for normal people and not extremely high. And this was the discussion in the Parliament, to have water for free, maybe, but simply we cannot do that because of existing conditions. And moreover, why to protect only water? Why not to protect soil? Soil is something that we need, we cannot have more soil. Why not to protect specifically forests, air, and so on. It was said that in Croatia there is the protection of sea. Unfortunately, we cannot protect sea because we have none. In Hungary you have at least Balaton. Historically, in Middle Ages, we had both these. We we had direct access to Baltic Sea, we had direct access to Mediterranean Sea. Well, now we have to go to Poland or Croatia or Slovenia. But yeah, indirectly, we have to protect seas because the water in the seas is coming from also Czech Republic. I said I'm a tax lawyer, so I have to highlight also the sources for efficient environmental protection. There are a lot of principles somehow connected between these two levels. Financial participation in public goods. This is something we don't have in the constitution compared to Poland, compared to Hungary, compared to other countries. We simply don't have that duty to participate on public revenues so that the country have enough sources to protect environment and to offer public goods and public services to its citizens. Maybe we should more highlight the principle of a reduced contribution for raising children. We have, of course, reductions for children, tax reductions for children, and I have to say that there are many politicians who believe that we should have higher tax reduction. Seeing the regulation all over the world, we may state that, of course, every country, almost every country, has any tax reduction or any tax preferences for children. However, I don't believe that we are having and educating our kids because of money and because of lower taxes. Principle of ability to pay, definitely, we need. These principles of taxes of a non-liquidating nature without choking effects. And also, we should pay according to what we throw. Pay as you throw principle in environmental taxes, environmental charges is something I really like, and I would like to suggest that to our legislature. And the last issue I want to talk about is the Land Construction Act. This is act that is existing. It aims to speed the construction of highways, railroads, also energy infrastructure, electronic communications infrastructure, because this is pretty complicated in our country. And when you go to Brno from Vienna, for example, you can see how it looks from Vienna up to Borders Highway, then nothing. Why? Well, one of the reasons is, or might be, the protection of environment. Because we have pretty nice possibilities for those who really believe they are protecting environment. And that's why this act was adopted, to speed these constructions, because very often ecological reasons were misused to extend the construction of and preparation time. So we believe it's necessary to establish the Supreme Constitution of a Construction Office as a central authority for these types of infrastructure, because the practice of the existing construction offices is very different. And also the aim is to limit the possibilities of these really wannabe environmental activities, to bring different appeals, remedies, actions, and it really takes not years but decades to prepare the construction. But I say wannabe environmental activities, and this is very important word, wannabe. Not real economic activists who really believe in environmental protection, because environmental protection must be always secondary. Thank you very much.